Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of Anime Crossing, a podcast about anime where six friends sit down and talk about an anime that has been voted on early on. My name is Ishan, also going by Ish. This is.
I'm the Bane's hero. You can call me Hero for short.
I'm Baja Irish Rico or David.
God, kill me. I'm Ryan. Just call me Ryan.
I'm Nate, you can call me by my handle, Golden Obsidian, but just call me Nate. It's a lot easier.
Hey, I'm Vignesh. My handle is Viggy Smalls. You can also call me Viggy.
Awesome, guys. Glad to have everyone here. This is going to be our first episode, like I said earlier, so please excuse any weirdness or, growing pains as we try to figure out how to this work, like that grunt right there. Don't worry about it, though. We're going to keep chugging along. Basically, just to give you guys a overview of how we did things behind the scenes here. Essentially, we have a pick order where each one of us goes around and suggests 3 anime that we want to all watch separately. And basically, we vote on one of those 3. They have to be relatively short, 1 core or 1 season if it's a long show. So, if we hypothetically did One Piece, which we're never going to do, it would just be 1 season of One Piece that we would discuss. And the 3 shows that were suggested this time by Ryan was Kagaster of an Insect Cage, Knights of Sidonia, and Beastars, and we all landed on Beastars. So that is going to be the anime of discussion today. I would like to open everything with a very general question to everyone. Let's go through everybody real quick. Did you guys overall like or dislike the show? And what are your just kind of immediate gut thoughts on it? You don't have to go into any specifics or anything yet. Just kind of explain to the people what you thought. Starting with Josh.
How I felt about the show was definitely off-putting. I was going in under the odd impression of like, oh, hey, this might be something along the lines of like animated animals from my childhood, which are like PBS and things like that. But I was wildly turned on my side once things started progressing, and it took a lot for me to get away from that. That was established through the media, Zootopia, Madagascar, something Madagascar franchise. And it's anime. It's weird, and they do stuff.
That's fair.
To me, that was refreshing, though, right? Because the characters aren't these super filtered, PG-ified caricatures of what people would be in a optimal Disney world, right? These are people with relatively believable emotions, objectives, needs, wants. The only twist is that they also have the biological needs of whatever species they are. So naturally, some of them have a biological need to eat each other.
Yeah. First 3 episodes I saw with Baja, and I felt like I was personally attacked, but
Oh no!
because they were very well written, and they were very, very much believable characters that you could find in looking in the mirror, apparently.
Mm-hmm. No, that's definitely a good point, and I definitely want to dive into those kind of deeper points in a bit. David, what did you think of the show overall?
I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a really interesting show with a mostly original concept, with really well-written characters that were refreshing, a story with a lot of messages in it, and I think it really solidified my love for animals.
Animals or anime? Ryan, what about you?
So, I enjoyed the show. I liked it a lot. I went on the impression from everybody that told me about it, it was just straight up furry porn. So I was like, all right, time to see if anything interests me. Which, nothing really did. It was very entertaining. There's a lot of points I do want to talk about, but as we dive further in. I think it's finally come out to you guys. It's been so long. But I enjoyed it a lot. It's very relatable even into a human standpoint. They did very well doing that. And then they also did very well with their instincts, like their animals. They still have that side of them, which is like, as either Josh or Vicky said, have the inherent inherent instinct to like eat each other. So I feel like they played that pretty well in the show.
Okay, that sounds good. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, to mainly go off of Viggy's point of view, I really enjoyed the show. It kind of, since this is a podcast, as a Puerto Rican black man, I related a lot with the carnivores, and just the idea, the main topics that it brought were really mature. Even though these were high schoolers, this was very much a topic of relatability, and it tried to it really, I believe that through that and through many of the other topics that that it touched on, it really did try to just relate to people via that. And even though these were animals, it kind of makes you reflect back on, oh yeah, even though we're humans, kind of the main thing about this is that we're technically still animals. So I don't know. I really enjoyed the show, and I enjoyed the aspect that it took, and the actual in depth of it, like the depth, and just the way that it hit each topic. Whether it's love, whether it's high school, whether it's growing up. There was so much that in just one season that it made it feel rich, and I didn't really have a difficulty relating to them, even though they were portrayed as animals. So I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I feel like the theme song for this could be the song Bad Touch. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that song. It's from like the early 2000s or like late 90s.
I am not.
Oh, it's like you and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it.
Yo, I never knew the name of that
Oh,
song.
I know this song.
Yeah.
I never knew the name of that song, and now I feel like an idiot.
Yeah,
You know why I know it? Because Josh, you played it for like an hour straight when we were at your house.
Did I really?
I enjoyed it. Okay, maybe it wasn't an hour, but I think it's just so repetitive in a good way that it felt like it lasted a while.
I think it was on the 90s. Yeah, I think it was on it was on the 2000s, definitely 2000s. Like radio playlist. But
yeah,
anyways,
I think they're wearing like suits like in the music video for it. Like
yeah, they're wearing monkey suits
and running around.
We'll play that as outro music for this podcast.
But yeah, like Josh, what you brought up actually, where you use the word off-putting. So I find that actually really interesting. Because I guess I should answer my own question. Like I also enjoyed the show overall. And I think that word off-putting it works really well because it was. I don't think any of us here can deny that there were certain times where we were like, this is brave and kind of not really seen in a shonen. And yes, this is classified as a shonen anime. And because it was off-putting though, I feel like it forced me to think. And kind of made a lot of things believable because our real world is messy and off-putting sometimes, right? And I went away, I love Legoshi as a main character as well. I think he's very unique, very atypical for a shonen protagonist. And his relationship with Haru is definitely like a big talking point that we should probably do a deep dive on. But I'm glad you used that word though, because I do think it's very accurate, but not in a bad way. I think it kind of drew me into the show because it was so different.
Yeah. The way I feel about Legoshi is there are a lot of things that are set in the perspective of for just males in general. There's a lot of things that are, what do they call it, predetermined or different perceptions that people have of like males being aggressive, and especially doubly so with carnivores. But he was kind of like going against it. And whether it's the concept of like characters, the protagonist being, someone who's a little bit more subdued, a little bit more pensive about the things that are mostly like set in motion by other people of that same categorization, being a carnivore, being a male carnivore, or being a male in general, and him actually like thinking about it and him not trying to completely deny it. Say like Shinji in NGE, there's so much of him going against being like, oh, I don't want to be such and such character, and it gets to that point where it's annoying. Whereas Legoshi, he actually considers, trying to play both sides of like, maybe it's not so bad that I'm a male carnivore. Maybe I could enjoy life a little bit more. And I feel like that exploration is a good thing to have with protagonists, especially in a modern anime. There's a lot better writing that has been put out there, and therefore it can go down a lot of that internal conflict and internal processing, which I enjoyed, and I feel is a good thing to have, especially with like all of the topics that they do touch on. It's definitely good to have something that, hey, it's okay to think this way, and you're not completely weird. If you're unsure of yourself, or it's not weird that you have these urges, because they are natural. But I don't know. I just want to put it out there that aside from Legoshi, I do have a favorite character, but I'll touch on that later, and I'm making a mental note.
Okay, that sounds good. What about you guys? Anybody else have any thoughts on Legoshi as a main character?
You can go ahead, Vicky. It seems like you wanted to speak first.
Well, I mean, this isn't necessarily going on how Legoshi mechanically functions as the main character so much as it goes on the concept of what a character wants to do versus social expectation versus needs, wants, etc. What I found interesting about Legoshi is the fact that, like, in a way, he's kind of the perfect window to view this world, in that, so carnivores accept themselves as carnivores, herbivores accept themselves as herbivores. This is a like world accepted norm where they're trying to change things and make sure carnivores don't kill all the herbivores, et cetera, world here. What's interesting about Legoshi is that he doesn't think being a carnivore necessarily equals strength, nor does he believe being an herbivore equals weakness. So when you see the world through that lens, he's kind of he views the world in such a way that when we view the world the way he does, see everyone almost like people. But the show literally opens with a carnivore killing a herbivore to kind of like hammer home the fact that at the end of the day, these animals are still animals, right? Like, don't assume this is your standard Disney movie situation where the animals are basically just people. Like, these are indeed animals.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a good point because, like you're talking about the differences between herbivores and carnivores and them just being straight up different physically, right? Like, if you think about, our world, right? We interact with pretty much just humans and then some pets occasionally, right? But when you're interacting with humans on a day-to-day basis, for example, let's take a high school setting to have like a parallel here to the show. At most, what's a threat to you? Someone bigger than you. Right? Physically, I mean, someone bigger than you or someone who's taken martial arts or something like that, right? But like the physicality of, imagine if instead of just interacting with humans every day, we had to actually interact with like carnivore species of animals every day, right? How terrified would we be of that, right? Without our weapons, without our tools, without what made us, advance past them, right? All of these animals somehow evolved to stand upright and talk and all that shit, right? And imagine if we lived in a world where humans had different species within us that are vastly different physically, right? Had vastly different dietary needs, right? How would our society, do you think our society would mimic what they did in the show?
I think, well, we're getting to that point where we are humans, we have like the capacity to be omnivores, but there are a lot of us that are selective in their diets, and I think that even goes beyond like consumption itself. It's the mechanics of like the sizing, the furniture. It would come to that point where it would be like really different. But I think with everyone trying to support the individualism of things in society, I think it wouldn't be too difficult, because we're getting to that point where people are very niche into their like subcultures, that there are a lot of things that just kind of like flow to support that, and there are like industries that are popping up left and right, that cater to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
No, yeah, go ahead, David.
sorry, yeah. I mean, the closest thing, I mean, we can get to what that was kind of portraying was different cultures or something like that. And you have to think from like the beginnings of society, to structure societies, even in human culture. People of different cultures aren't even that different. They're nowhere as different as different species of animals or anything. I mean, we're all still the same. We're all still humans. But even with those distinctions, whether that be beliefs or diets or whatever it is, right? We still have such a struggle integrating. And the only reason that we are able to is because of a human's innate ability to have compassion, which is still, lacking at some points in society. But I think we would, if we were trying to parallel this and say that would a society like that work in ours, obviously that's what humans innately like over time have come to, that humans as a people or whoever needs to integrate and help each other out. In order, we have to respect animals, we have to respect the environment, we have to respect a lot of different things. So I think we would go towards the direction of what this world that they created is trying to strive for, of course with its imperfections and its still corruptness everywhere. But I think we would see very much the same conflicts in that world as we if we had that same society.
Yeah, with taboos and things like that, they established a lot of side things that are kind of frowned upon but still function, and I don't know, it sucks to think that in our own world to like parallel that we do have the black market, the dark web, where things like that do happen. But I think it would be even more so on the next level of that. And I think that they're on the natural aspect of things being a taboo, they are touching on just a small percentage of like how dark things can get, which is the true like scary reality is like reality is a little bit stranger and like a little bit more horrifying than fiction.
Yeah, no, you guys were bringing up really good points, and I do agree that we have kind of evolved to the point where we have like these different niches for different groups, and I do think in the context of Beastars, it's a little extreme as well because that's why I was kind of trying to be hypothetical as well, imagining different subspecies of humans instead of just culture differences. Because if you look at Beastars, they as humans we almost all have the same needs, in order to survive, right? Apart from specific needs, if we have a medical condition or something like that, we all generally need the same things to live, right? Because we're all the same species, right? But imagine if, there were other species, that were living on this planet besides humans, right? That were as intelligent as us and if we interact with them on a daily basis. Because in Beastars, for example, there's literally a time of day where every species separates so that they can do this thing that they need to survive. Like polar bears have to go into an ice room, right? Wolves have to bathe in moonlight, right? Like they all have these specific needs that they desperately like actually need to survive, right? So I found that part of the world building to be really, really interesting. And when they went outside of the school and saw what it's like out in the real world, I really wanted to see more of that because I wanted to know like how the society even started and came up to this kind of stuff. And that comes from my own personal interest in, origin stories and things like that. Like, for example, Jack, he's a Labrador or something, right? How is he even there, right? Who domesticated dogs? Why isn't it just why isn't it just wolves? Right?
Jack is honestly like the wild card factor in a lot of this because like he has so many like mannerisms that I'm like, oh man, are they gonna pull the lens back where they're gonna have like humans be like the thing that I'm like, no, please no, this is gonna be too weird.
So that's what I want to know about that show as it goes on. And I'm assuming, the manga, we haven't read the manga.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's going to be more seasons probably. But, maybe these questions do get answered, but there were things that I was thinking of.
But to pull it back to a more like metaphorical land though, like the extremeness difference in trying to find real world parallels though is actually very clever in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because for example, right, like they are able to bring up serious questions of like drug abuse, getting exposed to drugs, but it's wrapped up in the concept of mammal blood, right? In this specific case in the story, rabbit blood.
Mm-hmm.
They can bring up the concept of like Yakuza and organized crime and human trafficking, but it's wrapped up in like as a sort of like illegally getting meat, which also goes into illegal trafficking of meat. Namely, in our current wonderful COVID situation, result of said illegal trafficking of meat. Like they're able to broach all these very mature like story or very mature like real world issues and put them in a story that's essentially a coming of age story because Legoshi, like as he gets older and starts to accept himself, I mean I say old, but it's that big period of time, but as he matures as a character and becomes more comfortable in his own skin, he gets exposed to more like dark sides of the real world, which I'm sure we've all had to engage with in one way or another as we've grown up out of adolescence into adulthood. And the show is able to bring these up, but because they're wrapped up in two things, the very extreme difference that is interspecies relations, and I'm sure that some board of media somewhere would not be comfortable showing kids drugs in a show, but mammal blood is fine. Like they're able to cover all these topics in an approachable way.
Yeah,
which I thought was very clever.
What I want to like kind of ask the group is I think it was episode 8 or something where they go to the black market and it's for the carnivores. What do you guys feel were kind of like the equivalent to Aoba the eagle and Legoshi denying consumption of meat? Would that be kind of like trying to like keep their innocence as kids or something else?
No, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think that was them trying to stay innocent because they knew about the black market. They know about the world around them to a certain extent. Then again, we don't really get to see them outside of the school persona except for this specific episode. I do think that this was a choice of sorts. It kind of shows their, to a certain extent, as I believe Viggy mentioned, this is a coming of age story. This is them choosing to be better than everybody, than the regular grown adult carnivore who says, you know what, I'm just gonna go to the black market and get whatever I want from there, and that's how I satisfied, my dirty little secret, so to speak. I think this was very much one of those coming of age moments that, and I have read a lot of those, trust me. This was very much one of those coming of age moments. A young adult understood and experienced for the very first time very dark part of their world, and they said, I don't want to be like this, because otherwise, I'm just another one, I'm just another sheep. ironically, them being carnivores, it just would just they would fall under the societal like niche that herbivores look at whenever they see a carnivore, and I think that was a very powerful choice regarding what happened. So I do think that that was one of the few key moments that we got to see when it came to coming of age. Of course, there's the other topics of love and this and whatnot, and sexuality. That's another thing that kind of touches upon. But this specifically for that episode, that was powerful for what it was. So yeah, that's my opinion, at least.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd probably have to agree with Nate. Sorry, David. Do you want to go first?
Oh, go ahead.
So I kind of agree with Nate on this one. Like, I feel like it was a choice, not like just like, I mean, it's definitely a coming of age thing, but I feel like their black market was kind of like a comparison to like the real world's like red light districts. Like eating meat is like a taboo of some sorts, and it's like something that's like looked down on, but they can't stop. Like the same with the red light districts. Like, you have, you can buy drugs, you can have sex with anybody you want, prostitution, stuff like that. So it's kind of like things that are looked down on, but they can't fully stop. So I feel like with Legoshi and the Eagle, honestly, I forgot his name. I'm so sorry. I feel like with them, Alba. So I feel like with them, they do it to a choice. Like, so no one can stop you from going into the black market. Only you can stop your decisions. So it's like,
you can prevent forest fires.
Pretty much. No, pretty much. So like that's why I feel like it's coming from, because like, in earlier episodes, like they're talking about as carnivores grow up, they're gonna go to the black market to eat meat. Or they will, or they can, or they have the option to. Right. So like they treat them from a young age that it's a taboo. So like they try to believe that they won't go out and do it. But I mean, that's also bringing up the baseline of animal instincts. Like they're going to do it, or they're going to try to do it, or something like that. But you can't really stop them. It all depends on their own decisions.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
that'd be my like hot take on it.
I think, and this might be a little controversial to say, so I expect a little bit of disagreement. But
here we go.
Yeah.
David doing the thing.
No. But like, I think the show really painted it in a black and white scenario. I know a lot of shows that deal with, drugs or like why people do the things they do, try to go into this gray area. But from where I was standing, and of course I'm going to have some personal bias, right? They painted the meat industry, or what they were eating, like eating meat, eating herbivores, killing these animals, as just bad. And the show did have characters to try to justify their actions, mostly carnivores, trying to justify their actions, saying it's instinctual or some kind of aspect like that. But the show, from my perspective, painted in a way where that was just some kind of excuse, some kind of weak, baseline just for them to justify something they know was morally bad. It wasn't very ambiguous in my perspective. So I think that the show is very much like, look, these are all living creatures. They try to be sympathetic by, they introduce us with so many herbivores. They show us like the dark backstories. They show us the like you said, the human or animal trafficking aspect of that, which isn't supposed to be ambiguous. It's supposed to be very much like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up that they're eating them. It's kind of fucked up that they're taking them. It's kind of fucked up that innocent people with moral, with lives, with personalities and everything are being killed. So going back to the original question of was it their innocence that they're trying to keep? I would say no. I think it's just a very baseline moral within that society that everyone understands is right or wrong. It's just the ones who can't control their instincts, or the ones who are not strong enough to fight against it, are just finding some kind of justification for their actions. While Legoshi and the Eagle, they're very much like, look, we're realizing that we may crave this, but we understand like the very obvious reasoning that this is fucked up and this is not right. And they're just stronger characters in that sense, where they can fight instincts or natural urges just for pleasure.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a lot of good points, honestly. And in my opinion, like, we keep trying to make parallels to our real life, but I feel like it's not exactly one-to-one at the same time. There's definitely like a lot of things we can talk about that's similar, but just the fact that, and this kind of goes into, again, me being interested in world building. They made it a point to say that herbivores and carnivores diets in the show are different. And at school, the carnivores eat like egg-based proteins basically only. And in real life, if we're trying to make a parallel, a true carnivore, like a lion, right? They can't subsist on anything but meat. Like physically, they need meat to actually live, right? Whereas we're human, right? We're omnivores, but we have enough, the way our diet is and the way our stomach functions and our digestive system works, we can become vegan, right? Like David, that's why you're saying you're biased in what you're saying, but we could become vegan and still be fine. We can stop eating meat, we can stop killing animals, and we'll be okay, right? But a true carnivore won't. Physiologically, that's why nature is the way it is. Carnivores eat herbivores. That's how it is, right? And we're human and we're weird and different, and we go against every norm that evolution has tried to place on us, right? And we separate ourselves from all of that. But that's how nature is, and I think that's what the show is trying to focus on. And they're trying to basically say that, okay, most of the meat in the black market comes from hospitals and funeral homes and herbivores that are going to die anyway. But then we learn that that's not the full truth, right? With Ruiz or Rui or Lewis, whatever his name actually is, because there's so many conflicting sources.
Milkman.
Yeah, he's my favorite character, by the way. And his backstory.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, his backstory implies that, oh no, all the meat does not come from a legit source. So there's some shady black market business that is probably killing excess herbivores, maybe even breeding them together to make a lot. And then
then they want that veal.
Yeah.
I liked initially how, at first they were trying to what you're saying about the diet. I like the justification of we give them different diets, we give them eggs, and there's other things that still may be animal byproducts, but would still kind of give them some kind of protein source. Then when we dip into the black market, they're saying even as fucked up as it looked, right? They're taking it from hospital patients who are losing limbs or something like that and then selling it, or taking it from animals who die. So even there, I was like, okay, it's still not maybe right. It's still kind of wrong, but it's still as ethically sourced as possible within the society. But then, in the last third of it, the whole Rui twist was okay. Regardless of what they try to set it up, when it was kind of still a little, and that's what I'm getting back at, that slightly ambiguous. It was kind of slightly ambiguous at first. We're okay, at least they're trying to do it in an ethically way. Then I think at the end they're just very much nah, there's no way we could funnel all the desire from just
just the sheer scale. It wouldn't function in that sense. And shoot, they even touch on hair loss with antlers.
Personal attack?
Wow.
No. Wait, who's feeling attacked?
The thing,
Vicky, what were you trying to say?
Well, to address the personal attack, David is very conscious of his hair thickness. But moving on from that real quick. But that's Gohin as a character is that issue made manifest, right? Also, Gohin is my favorite character. He's the panda.
Best guy.
Oh, there you go.
The thing is, right, his whole character in a way is, I am genetically and physiologically a carnivore, but am behaviorally akin to a herbivore because I can only eat bamboo. But I'm evolved from where all other bears' common ancestors are. So in that way, he's literally a biological bridge in that sense between the two worlds of carnivore and herbivore in the show. But even more so than that, right? He has this whole segment where he picks up Legoshi from the alley and explains to him that he's had many patients and all of them freak out like he does, and they go to such extremes to not eat meat because they ethically believe it to be wrong, that they get to the point where, like Josh said, they start having hair loss. They start eating their own limbs out of frustration to make sure they don't hurt anyone else. They have a bunch of suppressed stressors and get anxiety. There are all these even the show acknowledges, at the end of the day, carnivores have a physiological need to eat meat and sate a hunter instinct. Like they have to find a way to manage those things without hurting people. And the ones who don't, they end up in his office and he ends up having to help them. So the thing is, like, even the show acknowledges that, and I agree with you, David, on the point that, like, yes, the framing the black market as the meat is sourced, but the reality is that a lot of the meat probably isn't ethically sourced. And our world is like that too. Like, sweatshops are a thing. When the demand outpaces what's available, like, human suffering does happen when there are groups of people that want profit over, other people's care and health. So, like, yeah, it's definitely an issue for sure. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a black market, you have a bunch of carnivores having these issues, right? And then, like, the show even shows like a worst case scenario with like the Shishigumi Lion Yakuza group, which just abducts mammals because they have a very old school mentality of like the meat has to be young and it has to be eaten live and all these things.
They want the delicacy.
Yeah, exactly. It's the akin to like a 1%er doing whatever they want because they have the resources. Right?
That Wagyu.
So like it brings up a very like compelling lesson that a lot of people, like even in the real world at Legoshi's age, need to know and learn in order to navigate a complex world. Where, yes, in an ideal world, everything should come from a place of like, it may not be the most ethical thing, but no, like it causes the least harm. But the reality is that doesn't always happen. And then the darker subtext truth of that is it even possible to make a world where no suffering occurs at all? Right? So like in that way, like I don't think the show necessarily is saying that, oh, carnivores eating herbivores is just bad. Like obviously eating them, alive and hunting regular people is bad. But I don't think it brings up the concept of like the black market is bad. It's more, in my opinion, the market is trying to prevent carnivores from hurting everyday normal herbivores going about their lives in the best way it can. But the current solution is clearly imperfect in a lot of ways. But
you're saying it's an imperfect solution, but it's still a net positive.
Yes, just because I don't know what the alternative would be, right? Because if you don't have that service, for lack of a better word, carnivores end up getting wrecked, like all the Gohin's patients in the pictures he showed, right? And that's not a good outcome either, because that just makes carnivores angry, and then, they're physically superior to herbivores.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that leads to its own...
Most of them, at least.
Well, yeah, most of them.
Yeah, no, those were a lot of really great points. Nate, you got something for that?
Sorry,
okay,
I hear
never mind.
Sorry,
I love that you got something for that, and then.
Okay, I didn't like you anyway. All right, Ryan, you got something to say?
I already have my 2 cents on this. I mean, I can kind of see where David's coming from, but at the same time, I can wholeheartedly agree with Ziggy. Like, they're doing this as like a not purely flawless way of doing it, but it's also to. I mean, I don't know. It's really hard. It's kind of complicated because I mean, I don't know.
I feel like this is the grayness of it. Like I do agree with David from his initial point that this is very much a black and white show. Like it is not. It tries to be ambiguous, but there isn't, just because of the set moralities that are already set in this world. But it's very this specific point here, or for example, a specific point when it comes to the Yakuza that were, that unfortunately kidnapped Haru towards the end. What it shows is the very gray areas that kind of tip more towards the dark side of things in the society, not necessarily, not necessarily the set morality or the wider side of things where, like carnivores eat eggs, or like, where they keep themselves fed through other means. I feel like that specific point, at least when it came to the Yakuza and the black market, those were the gray areas where, when you think about it, is there really another alternative before we like dive into the chaos kind of thing? Because otherwise, I'm just, as Ish was saying, I'm pretty sure that there are areas in this world where carnivores hunt herbivores, and there's not like a clear like rule of law. I'm pretty sure like at some point we might run into that. You know, unfortunately we haven't read the manga, so we don't know. But that is something that I've also sort of thought about the more we've talked about this. I was just kind of like, if there's in every world, you know, imagine like this is probably located in Japan, for example. Imagine like, you know, maybe in third world kind of locations. What if they don't have the same rule of thumb? What if they don't have the same kind of like ritualistic rules or laws that they've established? You know, so that's sort of something to dive into and something to kind of think about for a while. But I guess it would be more theory and speculation before we even are able to dive into the rest of the anime or the future manga that's out. So yeah.
You know what I think would be like really kind of funny, and where a similar kind of setup of like the whole diet and like the whole thing of people that are consuming different things. What crossed my mind when watching this was like, what if the scenario in a different anime, Attack on Titan? What if the Titan ended up being like something that got accepted, and like they're like, okay, well, we're gonna try a system where like the Titans become intelligent, and then they can actually be serviceable citizens of society. Like, how goofy would that be? Of like, oh, don't snap at me. Like, geez, I didn't. Like, it would be just like one of those one-off things where it's like a goofy, like, more comical OVA.
I think no, that's actually really funny parallel to make. I think though that actually, I mean, this is like just getting into really super anime weeb territory, but I think that if that hypothetically happened in Attack on Titan, I don't think Titans actually need to eat humans to survive. They just do it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it's like it's just ingrained. I'm like, I'm kind of bored. I'm gonna bored eat. Just open the fridge.
Pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Dude, who else is like started bored eating when like because of the quarantine?
A lot of people during the quarantine. Yeah. David, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna actually make a similar kind of parallel with Attack on Titan as well. Not trying to go too much into like spoiler territory with all that. But I kind of wanted to pose a question. I mean, like, how would you perfect this society? And I know there's no perfect society, but if you got to play, God or something like that, or, some higher being that could just control and have the power, how would you fix a society? I mean, what would you say is a solution there? Within the constraints,
in the parameters of what's already established.
Yeah.
I would go along around the kind of realm of what Wall-E kind of did, and this is kind of touching on a little bit of the research and kind of analysis of Wall-E, where like with film theory. If you guys happen to watch that, where they were discussing like, what are they consuming? Is it like biologically possible for them to produce enough food, given the amount of people that are on the colonized ships that are flying across the universe or flying across the galaxy or whatever in space? Would it be feasible to take every single human off and still be able to produce? And like the teaser for it is like for the thumbnail is like, they're eating humans, and it's just like, oh no, that's shocking. But I do think that at some point it's like it's going to be a hodgepodge of just like everything that's dead and decaying, whether it be plant. In this case, in the universe, I mean, they didn't really touch on how the world itself is scaled as far as land versus water, but I think a lot of it would be it would be fish based. Because like in the hierarchy of things, they don't have like robotic fish as part of the ecosystem that is like intelligent going to attending school. So in that hierarchy, it would be bugs because they have the pet beetle, and it would be fish. That would be the equivalent of their protein source, and it would just be packaged where like people have their part-time jobs as like the egg curators. With that one short segment with the hen, I feel like that was really weird, but like tonally it was just like, okay, where are they going with this? I'm like, oh, okay. But for me, what I would do was like go one step further with that, where people's occupations would be like, oh, I'm an herbivore, but I'm going to package this like fish bug food and like rub it all over myself and kind of like inject it with my blood because that enhances like the flavor. It's like I'm licking all my fingers. That would be their job, is like to enhance the fish and bug food for the carnivores. That's how I would solve it.
Main thing that keeps me from getting on board with this though is they literally have a foreign language class for fish speak.
Yeah, they did.
Fish
I
are
forgot that
clearly
part.
sentient in this world, and also people. We just don't see them because they're in the friggin' ocean. But they have a fish class. Like, how can you speak bubbles?
So
I think it's only insects that aren't anthropomorphic. I think.
Okay.
So to go back on
Yeah.
David's question, like in terms of your question, David, like how you asking us how we would make the herbivore and carnivore society like work better?
Yeah, within the constructs of like what we've seen in this, like say you're maybe not God, but like say you're like a mayor or something like that, or like a powerful politician, you can kind of force change. Like, what would be your long-term or short-term goals?
Like, how do we approach society?
How would you make Animal Kingdom Kanye West?
Well, if I was a mayor, the first thing I would do is take out all my carnivore teeth and put in herbivore teeth.
Wow.
Okay, Lion Mayor. Okay, Mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why I asked is because like he was like, if you're playing God, how do you make the society work better? And then if you think about it from an Attack on Titan perspective, like most Titans, they don't need to eat humans to survive; they just do.
Yep.
So
But
they would only need intelligence or like a conscious.
But would you want
So,
them
like-
to survive regardless? Like, wouldn't you just kill them just in case?
Well, I mean, that's the question of if they have a consciousness, you can actually hash it out like normal human beings or normal people to have a conflict. So if you and I have a conflict and we talk it out and then we're good, that's fine. There's no bad blood. But like, I can't say the same thing as like, oh, hey, you ate like half of my race. And like, now you actually have a consciousness and we can talk about it now. Like, oh, it's okay. I forgive you. I'm gonna pat you on the back. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's where like, in terms of like, I wouldn't say racism, but like discrimination will come into play. But it's really weird and it's really hard to grasp because we're thinking of fictional things.
Yeah, I think the better question isn't like if you were a god, because that implies like, yes, there's constraints in this world, but then if you could play God, you could change a lot of things. I think the better question is, what would you improve to make it better? Because there is no perfect society, like David already said.
Yeah.
So like, what's something that you would change that you've seen so far, and would think that would at least help in some way? And I don't know, like it's definitely tough because we don't know a lot about the world in general. We've seen bits and pieces, so we don't know how to improve it. Like for me, what I would say is like, if there are like medical facilities in this world, which there are, like if there's medical researchers and pharmaceutical companies and things like that, maybe there can be some kind of suppressant for carnivores to suppress their instinct that could be developed.
Yep.
It's possible.
But the thing is, the risk with that is, they have to take their whatever meds or weekly test. Maybe there's like a test that they have to take every month and get like an injection or something, whatever it is. They have to still, it's hard to regulate because like they have to rely on the individual to actually keep doing it. But maybe hypothetically that could be a thing that could, because the reason I bring that up as a fix, quote unquote, is because I don't think carnivores and herbivores are meant to exist in a society. They're just not, right? In our real world, that's not how it works. Like a lion isn't just going to coexist with a gazelle. It's just not going to happen, right? But in this world, if they have intelligence and they still have, the problem is they gain intelligence and they still have their instinct. That's the problem, right? So you have to suppress that instinct somehow, otherwise it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that one. It's just kind of like with Isha's like world building stuff. Like we don't know enough about the world to like to finally say like what would work and what wouldn't work, because we only know that the only thing that they can help with their instincts on is the black market, quote unquote, and self-control. Like if carnivore goes into the black market, it eats meat, it's the taboo of the world, quote unquote, but it's their based instincts. Like if they choose to do that, that's how they do it, or they either don't do it and cause themselves harm and stuff like that. So you'd have to take away the instinct, which is something you can't do. So I would agree with you, suppress it, but it's like you have to have more world building to figure out how you want to go with that.
What was Zootopia's logic? Was it basically over the years carnivores' instincts got suppressed naturally and then they were reactivated by somebody distributing something to them, right? And that was like
they would get injected.
The berry juice or whatever, it wouldn't even like reactivate instinct or anything. It would just make the person aggressive.
It would just make them aggressive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But do you guys remember if they said in Zootopia that like their instincts just became suppressed over time?
I honestly don't remember. I think it was something along those lines, but I cannot remember for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember what was established in Zootopia.
But then again,
maybe the one who cosplayed from Zootopia has the answer.
I'm actually looking it up, so if you guys want to keep on talking, I'll see if I can.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to start getting into is something we definitely need to talk about, which is Haru and her relationship with Legoshi, as that is pretty much 80% of this entire show.
Yeah.
And
so are we gonna get the dad-ass jokes out of the open now or later?
If you want to. So what I'll ask you guys two things. One is, what do you think of Haru as a person? Can you understand why she is the way she is? You know, it's very easy to dismiss her and be like, oh, she's just a thought, like she's just right. But can you understand her actions? You know, what happened in her past and why she is the way she is? Do you think she's going to change her ways for Legoshi? And my second question, again, I keep asking world building things, and I apologize. But okay, hypothetically, right? And in our world, interracial couples, right? I'm not going to get super deep into this, I promise. But with interracial couples,
Nate talking the glass,
and I think most of us have been there, right? With some older generation cultures and people, right? They're frowned upon sometimes, right? And it gives you trouble, right? But that's about the extent of it, right? You can get by in some way. You can ignore the parents, you can move on, you can both try to get a career and, work your own lives out and be together, right? There's ways around it. But in this world, it's a little different when there's interspecies couples, right? If hypothetically we started seeing a ton of interspecies couples, the world would literally just die out because they literally cannot have babies.
And just imagine like a human with like a frog or something, be like, this is the love of my life.
Yeah,
well, that's
like unless there are some hybrid species, right? Like ligers, and even ligers have issues. Like when a liger is born, they can actually be like severely deformed and stuff. So that's one thing I want to talk about as well. But let's start with Haru, and then let's go into like maybe.
Well, I kind of understand her and I don't understand her at the same time. Okay. She very much seems to me like initially when and you guys kind of got the first impressions, I was kind of like, oh, she's cute. She a thought, she has to be protected because she's cute. But then
wait, what?
I'm pretty sure you messaged all of us. Yo, she
needs to be protected.
Yeah, she can get it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I did not feel that way.
But okay.
Yeah, her eyes
about this. Awakening.
Her eyes freak me out, but Juno might be able to get it.
Juno.
Well, Beastars low-key made this group have a furry awakening. Let it be known.
all right, Nate, keep going.
Absolutely not for me.
Yeah, but no, but
Okay, Josh, we'll get you on the next round.
We'll
You're gonna
We'll get there.
join
We'll
us.
get there.
It's cool, man. Have you met Lola Bunny? You know, she'll
Yes,
get
I've
you.
seen Space Jam.
Dude, Lola Bunny, Roxanne from Goofy Movie. Come on, man.
Yeah, come on, bro.
Come on, bro.
but-
Wait, Roxanne. Wait, what?
Roxanne
Hang
from
on.
Goofy Movie.
Dude, he's like, wait, liking Roxanne makes me a furry? I didn't realize that.
They're dogs. They're literal dogs.
Yeah.
no, but
Anyway,
all,
Nate, keep going.
No.
yeah, all in all,
No,
Maybe there's a sub dog. I don't know, but like,
he's just our dumb relative. He's our pet now. What?
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, the Goofy
but
Pluto thing is weird, but anyway, Nate, keep going.
Yeah.
all in all, the reason why I understand her is just because of the base information that was provided. She was going through her backstory, just the idea that, you know, she feels the safest when all of the guards are down. She feels like people are true to her when all of their guards are down. And that to her is the form of having, you know, sex, you know, and
Everyone's the same
It's-
height when they're horizontal.
yeah.
Wow.
And it's,
That's literally what I thought as well when they talked about it.
See, from a mechanical perspective, David exploits the fact that's not true.
yeah.
I don't.
but
But yeah, Nate.
yeah, but I do think that, you know, as a character, I enjoy her just because she very much, you know, she's bullied consistently, you know, from what we see, and she very much reminds me of a person that is comfortable with who she is to a certain extent, but still has her own like personal struggles. I don't think we've been able to see all of them, in my opinion, other than, you know, her wanting to or caring for Rui, and just sort of having like this idea of a friendship with Legoshi,
Mhm.
until the end. Like in the end, I don't feel, and this is mainly because I've seen something like this before to a certain extent, where I feel like she likes him and wants him, but I'm afraid that it might just be because of the length that Legoshi went to save her.
that
Because-
I want to
yeah.
touch on, but yeah, go ahead.
Because we saw that Legoshi was the first one to jump in, but the person who one-offed the Jakusa boss was Rui. So we saw that Rui ended up doing the same thing that Legoshi did. He just was late to react. And in my opinion, like that's one of the main reasons why I kind of don't understand Haru, where I don't know her true feelings other than her understanding herself and accepting who she is. I don't understand why she would consistently and willingly go out of the way to, in a sense, be a quote unquote thought and just sleep with other people.
So
Like
here's my-
knowing that she loves Rui, why would she do that? You know,
So
what
here's
I mean? That's
so
what
here's
I
my
don't
take.
understand.
Here's
Yeah.
my take, and
Oh, okay.
I 100% agree with like most of what you're saying, and you know you're saying it's hard to understand why she would do some of the things that she's doing, and you talked about her getting bullied and things like that. In my opinion, she is quite matter of fact a psychologically damaged person.
Oh shit! Yeah.
She has psychological damage, like straight up psychological damage. She acts very friendly and kind, and she is all of those things, but she has trauma that is affecting her decisions when she's sleeping with all those guys, and she thinks that that makes her feel safe because she's never felt safe outside of that, and that's not a correct way to think at all.
Right.
And that's why I find her so fascinating, because the show's not afraid to subtly be like, yeah, she's damaged, guys. Straight up, she's damaged.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I got
The-
some points I want to bring up, but I think Ryan wanted to say something.
Yeah, Ryan. go
Oh
ahead.
yeah.
No, the only thing I wanted to say was like, with Nate was touching on the fact that I don't think she likes Legoshi for the lengths that he took. Like Rui didn't really do much. Like he was just there for her, not even like in like an emotional or anything sense. They just kind of knew each other because they were up on the flower terrace, whatever they call it up there, and he lost his antlers. He had to chill there. They talked a little bit. They fucked a lot for just no reason.
Actually,
So go ahead.
he liked her. He liked her because
Oh, yeah,
he
you're
doesn't know who he is.
Right.
So
and then he
again,
started to
that'll
become
get
a fiancé,
into
yeah.
so that'll get into the discussion of Rui as a character. But his flaw is that like he's living in a society where he is constantly the underdog, but is not that way as a person.
Yeah, he has to
Right?
prove himself.
Yeah, he's always proving himself to the point where he has to always act like he knows his shit constantly. And it was refreshing to him to meet someone for the first time who doesn't put pressure on him.
I mean, I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
But anyway, keep
But
going, that's all.
No, you're fine. No, good objection. Because I would have been wrong. I would have been wrong entirely. But no, it's just like I feel like if any other character probably would have done like anything to a certain length, she would have started having the same thing for them too. Like if I think Dom was one of the fucking ducks, not a duck. God, it was something. Like, yeah, Dom the duck. I feel like if he did anything to a certain point up to like for her,
Mhm.
then she would have probably felt the same way.
Wait,
I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's fine. You're good. You're good.
Man.
Here's the question that I want to ask. Is
Okay.
Rui the Sasuke of Beast Wars or Beastars?
No, he's not.
No.
No.
Rui is not the Sasuke
I will
of
fight
robot animals and
I mean-
dinosaurs beating the shit out of each other. Unfortunately,
I mean, I kind of just joke at that, but like he does have the brooding side of him that always tries to be like, oh, I've got the Uchiha clan thing backing me because I come from this really stand up family. But like, is he always wanting to have to live up to that? Not necessarily,
No.
but I feel like
I think he realized that at the end.
yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
the weight of everything of why he reacted, to the lion mayor, or was he principal? He was a mayor, right?
Mayor.
Yeah,
He's a man.
The why he went with the mayor and he kind of like sided with him is because he felt like, hey, this is my calling. Like, I'm not gonna let some chick who we banged and stuff, whatever. I'm not gonna let her throw me off my ambition of like trying to be someone who's gonna change the world. That's the very shonen perspective. And for up until that point, it wasn't until then that I kind of sided with Rui. Not to say that we all know my track record isn't great with girls, but when it comes to like trying to choose like your calling and stuff, like you chose it. I have chosen my calling rather than like some girl who's like, oh, blah blah blah, this or that. But it's a different story when someone kind of changes your life for the better and kind of makes you realize and flesh out the true potential of you, and kind of like I feel like that needs to be developed a little bit more with Haru, because to be honest, I don't really like the whole concept of the relationship that Haru and Legoshi have.
Mhm.
The reason why I don't like it is as I've matured and kind of like grown more aware of relationships in general, I stopped believing in the idea of the damsel in distress or rescuing the princess. Like, I've gotten away from that because girls don't need rescuing, and guys don't need the fixing, because we can fix ourselves. We can all save ourselves. And that romanticism of it, I don't really agree with, for reason enough for them to work out. So when the finale of the season rolled, I'm like, I don't really care if the relationship like lasts, because I don't see it lasting, to be honest. If it's built upon this.
So here's the thing, and I kind of want to take it back to Haru with this, as well as address some of the points you're bringing up, because you do bring a lot of points of how like it took literally a save the princess situation for Haru to like start warming up and opening up and things of that nature. But
True.
we have to keep in mind these are literally high schoolers that are like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
17 at the most. Like these
Yeah.
aren't mature adults. Like the show goes to mature territory. But at the end of the day, I think at the ages of 16 and 17, we can all say we got caught up in and did some pretty dumb stuff.
That is
Oh, yeah.
literally that is
Like-
literally the only kind of thought that I had about
Yeah.
it. So yes.
So
Like
like
save the princess. You know, yeah. So yeah, that's true.
like that has to be acknowledged. Like these are still characters growing and maturing and are in a lot of ways definitely in their adolescence. Like they're not quite adults yet. I'm not trying to hand wave, but I am saying that like that has to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what you're
That's
saying
valid.
about Rui, and what you're saying about Rui specifically, like his when the mayor was telling him like not to pursue this and not to tell anyone, that was the pivot for his entire character, right?
Yeah.
Like him hesitating was his character defining moment. Like
Oh
he
yeah.
he didn't leave right away, sure, right? And that he probably regrets doing that now. But the point is he decided I'm going to make my own way in this world. Like I'm not going to try to live up to other people's expectations. I'm going to do what the fuck I want to do. And if that involves
So
leaving right now and shooting this dude in the head, I'm gonna do it.
yeah, so sorry. Did you
Keep
wanna
Yeah.
so
Here we go, the struggle.
I know.
mean,
You can go ahead if you want. I don't mind.
I mean, is it like a short point, or are you trying to like unpackage some?
Well, I actually kind of want to unpack a little bit because seeing that
Okay.
we are kind of focused a little bit on Rui, but
in
go
that
ahead.
case,
Go.
yeah, I did want to cover some stuff before we like deep dive into Rui, because
Yeah,
there
go
is
ahead.
like a Haru thing I did want to acknowledge first.
Go ahead.
So the two very big points this show consistently brings up in most of the interactions that we see between characters and the interactions between individuals in society is the nature of power and the nature of pride and how those mingle with each other. In the case of Haru specifically, she's never really been able to feel prideful about any action
Can you
because
bring the mic away from you? Sorry.
oh sorry,
It's
did I get
crackling.
loud? Oh, might be. Yeah.
Okay.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. In the nature of Haru specifically, her pride has never been able to become very strong just because people are like, oh, you're a small, cute dwarf rabbit. You don't need to do that. I'll do basically everything for you. Her nature of power has been very weak. Like her empowerment of self has been very low due to the fact that, again, you're a small dwarf rabbit. You need to always be careful. You need to always hide. If anything happens to us, we're screwed. But in the bedroom, right? Like your pride is laid bare considering you're pretty much fully exposed. And you're on a more equal playing field than power in power simply because power dynamics in the bedroom are very complicated. I'm aware of that. But in terms of her emotional state, as far as what we know from what she is saying in the show, she has only felt empowered in any real way in the bedroom, for better or worse. So coming from that space, like Ishan said, she's definitely like a very psychologically traumatized person who is definitely damaged in a lot of ways in the sense that like outside of the bedroom, she's never been able to feel pride in who she is as a dwarf rabbit because of the fact that A, everyone constantly wants to help her, and then B, the only activity that she can engage with that does give her a sense of empowerment and pride in herself causes other people to basically slut shame her, right? So it's like in general society, I can't be empowered or prideful about anything because I'm seen as small and weak and can't do stuff. And the one thing I can do to feel self-actualized and powerful, I'm looked down upon for that. So in a lot of ways, it helps illustrate A, the psychological trauma and damage, but B, better understand like the actions she takes and that like that's really the only place she feels safe and comfortable, which as everyone has brought up before, I agree. But we see that dynamic interplay across a lot of the characters. Like Lewis has a lot of pride power dynamics issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like going with what you're saying, Biggie. That concept is and this is from me growing up in a house full of women. This is me coming from a lot of workspaces where it's very female dominated. A lot of it is the power dynamic and the female experience in itself, like beyond her being, but beyond like Haru being a dwarf rabbit. It is unfortunate that that's the case with a lot of females out there, and in that sense, I really do like Haru's character, but I feel like the situation as far as relationship goes, I don't feel it has a good enough basis. But you're right also that they are pretty young, still in perspective of high school equivalent. But yeah, it's interesting and really crazy to have that we're able to see this portrayed in in the media, and it makes people think of like, hey, maybe we shouldn't judge people too harshly because of their choices on being a little bit more promiscuous. And I've been kind of faced with this kind of predicament, this kind of scenario with a few girls, and why I do kind of feel like, hey, are they like stealing parts of my life right here? Because I've kind of experienced, girls that I'm attracted to that happen to be a little bit more promiscuous, or happens to have like be surrounded by a bunch of rumors that are negative, but it shouldn't actually be negative in that sense, because everyone has their opportunity and their choices, and they're valid to it. But the thing that's really tricky though is where do you draw the line between morality versus like kind of trying to navigate like your own personal preference. And like, I don't know, it's a weird dynamic that just for me watching and consuming this type of media, it just made me think. And I feel that it's a good series in that sense that it makes me think. It makes me propose the question to myself, because it takes me out of my comfort zone. I'm very much so based in it that I found out. I'm very much a prudish kind of person, even though I might not look like it. And that was that I empathized with a lot of the dynamics of it, because I may look like I'm such and such kind of person on the exterior, like Legoshi, who's a carnivore. And I think you kind of broke it down to I have the Ryan Gosling effect that we talked about before.
Josh on the side saying, "Yeah, I'm Ryan Gosling. I'm the carnivore. I'm Legoshi."
Couple things, right? I disagree with a couple things that you're saying. So I don't think it's a simple question of some people are just more promiscuous here. Because if you think about it, and this ties into also justifying the relationship as well, which you were talking about. You have to keep in mind, Legoshi is the first guy who didn't just sleep with her, right? Yeah. That's actually a really big deal. And if you remember what her reaction to that was, wow, he's weird that he didn't do that.
Yeah.
Right. Her sense of normalcy is completely skewed, right? To her, in her own reality, it's completely normal for her to just ask a dude, hey, let's sleep together, and they'll just fucking do it every time, right? And to her, it's weird when one guy who is also a carnivore says no, right? So I don't think it's a simple question of, oh, she's just more promiscuous. I think there's legitimately something messed up with her. Like, she's messed up. And, that kind of, and maybe she hasn't even realized it for herself yet, right? And through Legoshi, she might realize that, being with somebody who actually likes you for you and who you are is actually what I want, right? Because even after Legoshi saved her life, her focus was pretty much getting him laid, right? Because like they went to the hotel. She even told him, whatever you do to me, you're justified today because you saved me. Right?
That was one of the reasons too that I didn't think.
So for her, like her sense of normalcy is completely messed up, right? And the fact that Legoshi doesn't just see her as like a sex rabbit and actually wants to be with her is something that she has to slowly realize as well, right? And we're not quite there yet, which is also why at the end Legoshi has his essentially a shonen ending moment where he's like, I'll become stronger, but it's has a different connotation here. It's not like Mario Academia where I'm going to train and I'm going to become stronger. It's I'm going to become stronger and control my instinct and learn about myself so I can be with you. And then she says, I'll be waiting or whatever, right? Yeah. And they're just standing there. Nothing actually happened, right? So I think their relationship isn't a thing yet, and it's going to be explored more. And I think that's where the author is coming from.
I'm going to have to disagree with you where I don't feel like that we should look at any kind of people that have this kind of perspective, and it's a matter of self-respect. And it's true that her perspective and her reasoning for conducting and having multiple partners is a bad thing, and like that she's broken or any. I don't feel like we should instantly put labels, but in terms of like other people that choose to have multiple partners, and in that sense, I don't feel like we should instantly label people as like, oh, they are broken, they have psychological trauma or whatnot. In that sense, I feel like what they're trying to do is, hey, there are some circumstances where people they have such and such reasoning for that, but I feel like we shouldn't always say and look at them as like they're broken. We need to baby them. I don't feel like that. And with the approach of Legoshi, he sees her as a very nice lady. He sees her as an equal. He sees her as someone he wants in his life. And there, I can't really agree with 100% with what you're saying. Nor should we, put instant labels based on that. But like in her,
I don't put that label on her lightly. I make that I appreciate the disagreement. Good talking. It took me, like watching the show a lot to think that in the first place, because trust me, I don't have any problem with people being promiscuous. I promise you, I do not have a problem. Right. So me saying that, like that's coming from a place of analysis. I'm not just trying to put a label for no reason, but I respect the disagreement though.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like to clarify what I was saying is like if we don't have like an exact analysis on what she was actually exposed to and like her mindset and internal processing of things, then like I don't know, it would still be kind of like here and there on saying one thing or another. Like someone is psychologically traumatized or whatever.
Well, the thing is, Josh, and I see where you're coming from, but I see where you're coming from. But I feel like the main thing in this regards is that we know the psychology that led her to wanting or being safe when it came to sex. Yes. So it wasn't like she was originally promiscuous and then, people said, oh, she's broken. No, yeah. I think because we know that she's inwardly already broken, that's the main reason why I'm seriously a paletero at this time. I'm outside, guys. I'm outside. So that there's too much noise. There's too much noise inside of the house. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like that was the main thing with it. Like I feel like that's the point that we're kind of, at least where I agree with Ish, where Haru was already broken, and we didn't get to see that until there was an in-depth into her, where she was looking and saying goodbye to the world because she believed she was about to get eaten, and that led us to thinking about, oh, this is why she's okay and matter of fact and very much like I don't care about what people think about me, because she knows she is broken.
And then her moment of strength in that moment came from Legoshi as well, where she like tried to kick him.
Exactly. So like, I feel like that's the main thing with it. So like, you know, mainly just to like clarify, I don't think that, you know, she was initially promiscuous and then, you know, the label of broken was put. I think it was more of the, wow, this person really, like, she thinks so little of herself that when a moment of what felt like safety or a moment that felt like control or understanding came about, that was completely misunderstood, and that's why she interpreted as, this is my safe space. That's at least the way that I see her character say. Now, not sure if you guys wanted to jump into Rui, because I have a bit of an analogy myself just from seeing Rui and Legoshi, who are actually a tie on both of my favorite characters, just because they are very much yin yang. But I'm just gonna put that out there.
I would love to talk about that. Right before we get to it, though, I just wanted to hear David's thoughts on Haru, just because I don't think he's talked about her yet.
I'll be honest, I don't have as deep of an analysis as you guys had.
Okay.
I think on a very surface level, I didn't understand her actions for the first couple episodes. My big question was like, why was she such a loner? Like, aside from like, yeah, other girls maybe making fun of her and everything, her personality seemed pleasant enough, and she obviously was attracted by, you know, several guys, and I wondered like, what's the other aspect that's like holding her back from just making friends, aside from her own like internal fears and personal isolation to some degree. But
so,
yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, unfortunately, none of us here are women, so it would be extremely helpful right now for one to be here. But I can only speak from the perspective of someone else explaining, like, and this wasn't even in context of the show. This is just in context of like being shamed for being sexually active in high school as a young woman. Like, there is a social stigma that's attached to you, right? That like, at least from my life experience, in many cases, we just aren't exposed to from a gender group perspective. Like, yeah, we'll hear rumors and there'll be memery, and, you know, some people will take advantage of hearing said stuff. But like, in terms of the actual like negative social impacts, I've heard some horror stories from people in terms of like people they've known that have just been ostracized and not able to have like what healthy social groups in high school due to like XYZ things related to them being sexually active. Like, it definitely does happen. So
that could be it.
Do you guys feel like if the roads were to diverge, and, you know, we didn't explore it, we didn't have the picture painted of the budding relationship between Legoshi and Haru, where do you think it could go in progression of Rui and Haru? Like, where do you guys feel like relationship wise that could improve? Because as it stands, I don't feel like and this, again, I feel personally attacked because I don't like the idea of them hiding the fact that, oh, we're only together in such and such scenario where we're gonna hide the relationship. Like, girl, don't hide me. You know, I'm someone you should be proud of, and like, you know, I don't know. Anyway,
so to answer your question, I don't think it would improve in any way, shape, or form, because Rui, unless we were to pick up from where we left him off, where he kind of disappeared and decided to live his own life, the pressures of society and being a Beastar, which, by the way, I still think that whole thing was dumb because we haven't even delved into that, at least in this first season. I think it was a pointless kind of in the air kind of thing.
I think it'll make more sense.
Yeah, I think it might make more sense later on too, but we'll see. I just think that at least for this first season, it made no sense. But to jump back to Rui, I think that unless we were to pick up from where we left him off, things wouldn't change because he would be under the societal pressure of wanting to be better, of basically saying, hey, I need to make a change and you're not a part of that change. I need to, I'm meant to be somebody else's legacy.
But what's interesting though, right, is that he's not only constrained by Oh, sorry, am I interrupting?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh, what's interesting is that he's not only constrained by like the symbol he has to be of being better. He has to be better within the constraints of what society deems as an acceptable version of better.
Yeah.
And if he steps out of line of that, he loses his ability to be a symbol, which is like a huge point of pride for him, and it's what gives him essentially power in his life. Like the reason he has so much sway, pride he has in being a symbol of change. So
yeah,
I thought that was interesting, and it helped explain some of his motivations. Because, like, in a lot of weird ways, he's kind of like Griffith from Berserk, right? It's I've devoted my entire life and everything I have to this one objective, and then he's thrown in a situation where either do what you actually feel is right or continue to sacrifice for the objective.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I think Nate made a great point by saying, like, if hypothetically he came back, we none of us here know what's going to happen. But hypothetically, if he comes back and then the show's perspective goes to him trying to actually be with Haru, that would make more sense because now he's undergone change, right? Whereas previously, he would just say, "No, I have an obligation. I have a wife or a betrothed." Like they literally said that. He literally has another deer or something like lined up for him. And if he didn't go through that change where he's like, I have to think for myself and I just need to do what I want to do to make myself happy and not what society thinks of me, then only then after that character development would he even, I think, look at Haru like, so he could potentially, it might even be a rivalry if he comes back or if he's the killer, who knows?
What?
Oh, dude, he's not the killer.
Why would he? Oh, it would be kind of like a good cover for the fact that he's like, oh yeah, Tim, blah blah blah, this and that. But like, what I want to know is they didn't discuss the evidence of like what was remaining, like or like the gruesome details, because like they're just like he was gone.
I think it was so the first season didn't seem to care too much about who the killer is. It was focused more on this is the situation, these are the characters, these are the main pieces on the chessboard, right?
Yeah.
And it like the killer thing, I think its main purpose and the reason why I'm okay with it opening with the killer stuff is to hit home. This is not your Disneyland animal world. This is an animal world where animals will eat each other if they can't like control themselves or if they're just crazy in the head and they want to do it purposefully or whatever. Like this is a very real world with some elements of actual animal biology stuff going on. Like it helped to separate the world early on from every other animal world we've seen in fiction.
It went the route of Goblin Slayer.
Yeah. The only difference is this got better over time.
Goblin Slayer is so good. Anyways.
Wow.
Go on.
Get off my podcast. I'm just kidding.
I sense another civil war.
Wait, that civil war would be lost because not a lot of people are on the Goblin Slayer train like I am.
Yeah. It's okay. You can be the Stan. You can be the hero that Goblin Slayer needs but doesn't.
Nate,
wait.
you wanted to talk about Rui's relationship with Legoshi, like how they kind of pair together. Let's talk about it.
So honestly, guys, these two are my favorite because of the relationship they have. Granted, it's not a great one, but this is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hamilton in any way, shape, or form.
Zero.
So to explain it in the way that Hamilton did it with Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, Legoshi is, in my opinion, the Alexander of this show, and Rui is the Aaron. In a sense, Aaron Burr and Rui are very much like they are the prized child. They are from a rich family that has a lot of pride, a lot of legacy carry on, but do not think for themselves, or do not act on themselves because of the fear that, oh, maybe if I make one wrong move, that can mess up everything. In comparison to Legoshi, where, well, I guess not necessarily Hamilton specifically, but Legoshi is always hiding and kind of not showing his true power. The main reason why I compared him to Hamilton, because that's a huge difference that they have, is that in a sense where the play ended, or where the musical ended, the way that it ended, is that Legoshi learned to be a lot more like Rui. Rui learned to be a lot more like Legoshi.
Yes.
Legoshi, his entire time, like the entire season, he was like, even though it was depressive and incredibly like unhealthy, he was choosing to be like, I'd rather, be a shadow and understand that even though I'm powerful, I don't wanna cash in that power. Like I just wanna be in the background. And he willingly put time into not being noticed. In comparison to Rui, from the end, from what we saw, he always wanted to act. He always wanted to have the same power that Legoshi had, but could never actually do it unless he willingly put time into looking powerful, into acting powerful, until the end when he actually made a powerful move and chose for himself. And that, to me, that was amazing. Like, that was a yin and a yang of basically, we start with a very strong person, Rui, that wants to, in a sense, act for themselves. We start with a quote-unquote very weak person that already acts for themselves, and then they shift the balance. And they learn, in a sense, they learn from each other, but kind of Legoshi became what Rui was, and Rui became what Legoshi was to a certain extent. And I love that. I love that mechanic between them. So that was the biggest thing for me. And I feel like that's what made me love the show even more, regarding characters and the way that they interact with the specific society. So that's what I kind of put all my chips into. So yeah, I really did enjoy it. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree with everything you said, pretty much. In literature, we call them character foils, basically.
Character what? Oh, foils.
Character foils, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's done beautifully here, I think. What you said, 100% tracks, like, they play off each other so well. Anytime Rui told Legoshi, you need to take off that mask, stop being fake, like, embrace yourself. I'm like, yes. And then every time, Legoshi calls Rui out for his bullshit, I'm just like, this is just so masterfully done. Like, and especially when it just explodes, like when Legoshi punches him in the face, and they actually like start fighting. It's so good. And was
fantastic.
Yeah, it was such a highlight of the show for me. And like Rui, recognizes, if Legoshi just tries a little bit harder and embraces who he is, he can become a great person.
Yeah.
And he wants that for himself, like you said, and he realizes by the end of the show the only way he's going to get it is if he makes some kind of change in society, right? Because society is not going to let him. It's not going to be the same for him as an herbivore. Right. It's not going to be the same. So yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I loved everything about it.
I liked so like, and I really liked their different end goals though, because Legoshi was like always, and I think even at the end of the show, he's very much caring about a simple life where he cares about his friends and everything. And then Rui is obviously the bigger picture guy, worrying about society. And I mean, they both already have each other's end goals, as like they would be better at reaching each other's end goals if they switch positions, in my mind, like if they switch bodies, or even personalities to a degree. But, and that's the beauty of it. That's not what they're going for. Like, Rui is, he's popular, he's handsome, he could live a happy life, find love, he can be friends, and just, put that image and live to himself, and, work on himself, have friends, whatever, right? But, like, Legoshi didn't care about the Yakuza in terms of, like, this is messed up, we need to stop it. This meat market's messed up, we need to stop it. He was just like, it's wrong, and I'm gonna go save my friend. Like, he didn't even think about the deeper, like, meaning of it. Like, Rui knew it was messed up. And he had to think about the bigger picture there. And he was like, yeah, I'm obviously not going to do that because on the long-term scale, if I become a Beastar, if I become this is what's going to really make the change. And Legoshi was just like, whatever. I mean, he literally like rushed into it, even if it was going to be by himself. And he bombarded a Yakuza gang of lions.
Yes.
And 35 of them. And first of all, this is like an aside. I mean, he wrecked shit in there, and that's fucking impressive, right? Like,
Hey, the Panda guy wrecked shit too.
Yeah,
Panda guy wrecked shit too.
oh yeah, well, Panda's
Gohin is my favorite character, by the way. Also,
Yes.
Cool.
I mean,
Thank you,
Gohan
David.
is me. I mean, it's an omnivore who chooses to...
Wow.
Okay.
Except he works out. Except
This
he works out
fucking
consistently.
guy.
Keep telling yourself that.
This fucking guy.
Keep going,
I
bro.
kid, but yeah. I mean, I thought that was the beauty of the parallel there. That like, you know, I don't blame. I'm trying to just. You can see where they're both coming from, and Rui, I think, in the larger scale, is a more important character for society. Obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of getting off my train of thought there, but yeah, that was the main point I want to make. Just how the parallels there.
I think we understand what you're trying to say, because in the beginning, right, like in a non-negligible way, Legoshi is sold as basically like a herbivore living in the body of a carnivore, and Ruiz is shown as this guy with the charisma, strength, and grace and presentation of a carnivore, but in his most vulnerable moments and from a physical perspective is still very much definitely a herbivore. So like, yeah, to your point, their initial shown goals would definitely be like achieved in a way when we're first shown them faster if they were like in each other's bodies, which is partially why like anytime Lewis sees Legoshi like being meek and like defenseless about stuff, he's frustrated because he's like, I'm a herbivore, and I'm carrying myself with this much power and like command of any situation. You're a carnivore who can, if you acted like me and could physically back it up, the world is in the palm of your hand. And he hates that. Like,
yeah.
they
Honestly,
they have chemistry and a bromance, but you can also like see under the surface like disgust.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
honestly,
frustration.
I feel like what I wanted to see the most was Rui's face when Legoshi actually stood up for himself and for what he wanted to do when he fought against that tiger during the play. I wanted to see Rui's reaction. I wanted to see what he actually thought about Legoshi finally actually breaking to a certain extent and being like, fuck this, I am done. You know, I wanted to see that because, like I said, the balance shifting of, you know, Rui becoming more like Legoshi and Legoshi becoming more like Rui. I wanted to see that because it was the first instance of actually Legoshi taking action for what he wanted to do, and we didn't really get to see that. You know, it kind of got played off as this was part of the play, and then Rui was just pissed off at both of them at the tiger dude, which is my least favorite character, by the way. Yeah,
or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Because it's just it would have shown a lot more about what we kind of wanted. Like if he had that, you know, those crazy eye moments that people have in anime where like it's super wide eye and the pupil gets super tiny. I'm like, that would have. I feel like that was, you know, even though we didn't get to see that, I feel like that was Rui witnessing, you know, what Legoshi did, just being like, that's the power, there you go, that's what I wanted, kind of thing.
But he
never expressed that. You know?
He kind of did in like there's a dual purpose for him coming out on stage and him with coming out and acknowledging Legoshi and like reaching out his hand. But he's acknowledging and like we kind of can infer like what he was what his reaction was to that standing up to Bill because he extends his hand out. He's like, hey, you know, finally you're embracing what your natural gifts are, and he wants him to be like someone who's respectable. He wants that for him. but at the same time, he's like, "Hey, man, good for you, but don't get in my way because I'm the one with ambition, and you're doing your thing, and I'm happy for you, but also don't mess with me because what I'm doing is important and it matters too." So in that sense, I feel like you can kind of like you can kind of like piece what's the phrase put two pieces together. I don't know the saying on that, but anyways, yeah.
The two going to one of the things Viggy was bringing up, especially because you mentioned Bill Nate, like when you were saying Viggy, like Rui has moments of vulnerability where he realizes, yeah, I'm still an herbivore. Right? And I think two really good examples of that are when after he hurts his leg and they hire Bill to basically take his place, and Bill and Legoshi are doing the practice fight before the actual play, and Bill is like, "Oh, I don't have to hold back anymore." Because the guy I'm dueling is a carnivore now, right? And two, when Juno overpowers him, right? He gets overpowered by a female carnivore, right? And she even says it outright. She's like, "How do you feel like that I'm overpowering you?" Right? Which we should talk about Juno as well.
All right.
We know everybody's best girls.
She is something else.
She is something else.
Fire, freaking fire.
But yeah, I mean, as you guys know, like Rui is definitely my favorite. And just to make sure we got everybody's favorite characters out there, so Viggy and Josh are both going, and I know Nate said it's a tie for you. David and Ryan, who are your favorite characters? Did you guys mention it?
David, you want to go?
No, you go ahead.
Shit. See, I don't really. I don't know exactly. I mean, like a lot of characters are like really, really good. Like Gohin, I would say it's a tie between Gohin and Legoshi, in my personal opinion. And
I think David's gonna say Jack.
he's gonna say Dom the duck.
Bro, that llama that died in the beginning, the alpaca, he hit me hard.
Tim.
No, I think
Temu.
one thing is like it is.
Tim is short for temporary.
So is Tim. Dude, that was so good.
God dang
That was so good.
One thing is that the show is. I mean, there was only 12 episodes, and I think when we talk about our favorite character, it is kind of limited to like kind of like the 3 characters there, or like 4 or 5 characters who are actually have enough spotlight to actually make an impact. So when I say it, yeah, Legoshi is probably my favorite character, but I find Rui the most interesting character. That's just because like, yeah, as much as I like them as characters, I feel like none of the other characters were able to get enough, aside from Goei, Panda Man, who I love a lot too.
Gohin, it's like Goku but Hin instead of.
Yeah, so Panda Man. Just kidding.
I can't. Oh my god.
But yeah. So like I said,
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Anybody else want to bring up any points about Rui before we start talking about Juno?
I'm pretty good, yeah, actually.
All right. So what did you guys think about Juno? Because Juno is kind of like, she represents this natural fit for Legoshi, right? Same species, like they do get along, Legoshi's just literally not attracted to her in any way at all. But, it makes sense for them to be together, and all that. She represents that ideal girl for him in that society, right? But, then she also acts as a rival for Haru, right? And she comes in and does some manipulative things as well. So I'll say for me personally, I don't like hate her or anything, but I'm definitely kind of mixed about her.
Yeah.
And I think that's the intent as well.
Right. She has redeeming qualities.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, like in the actual animal kingdom, there is also rivalry for mates. Like that's a thing that happens, right? So it didn't surprise me that she tried to be like manipulative or anything like that. So what do you guys think about her? I'm curious.
I would. So like just from hearing real quick from what you guys are saying that like like I obviously she wasn't like a nice person, but I don't hate her. I would go in the realm where I hate her. I think she's like 100% an antagonist, a villain. She's manipulative in a way where she has to use cheap tricks in order to try to just push herself up. when I was going on that black and white, and the only thing with the morals of the society and saying that, you know, the carnivores try to give some weak argument for you know, their justification, she was like the picture definition to me, where she was like, oh yeah, we're strong, so we'll protect you little guys, right? Like, I felt there was no basis to that argument, and she was like exemplifying everything that's wrong and just trying to show that no matter what, we're still superior, you know? That's not what the society is trying to do. Outside of like her mentality, they're trying to say that, you know, everyone's kind of somewhat on equal footing, even if we're not physically all the same. She was just saying that, oh yeah, no, we have to address that we're strong, we'll take care of you guys, and literally putting them down as second class citizens, not like, you know, exemplifying any of their strengths, just saying that like, it's just how society is, we'll protect you guys just because you guys are below us. But yeah, no, I mean, I hated her. I mean, her attacking Rui, I mean, that's not justified in any sense, regardless if she's stronger. I mean, she obviously is trying to do everything by using her natural advantage and not using her power of her beauty to kind of like shit on everyone else, instead of like her actually being a better person, being attractive, and her personality being attractive, you know, winning in some more, you know, wholesome, deeper way. So
for that point specifically, I thought she tells him at the end that I don't need to use the fact that I'm a carnivore to beat you. I'm going to become the next Beastar with my own skills. I thought she tells him that afterwards.
She does.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I think that's just a facade. Like, I don't think she.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I think she's definitely using like everything, that she's a female, that she's a carnivore, definitely to her advantage. And to reiterate and to support what you were saying, David, about the about her kind of treating others as like the second class citizens, I believe that is the case, because she's like, oh hey, look at us carnivores, we are superior, but we're bringing ourselves down to your level. You should you feel safe around us, and blah blah blah, this and that. And it's like it's kind of a roundabout way to tell everyone that like, hey, we're equals, but we're equals because we dumb ourselves down to your level. And in that sense, I don't feel like she has some redeeming qualities for sure that make her you know, a good character, but I do feel like she is one of the antagonists in some sort of ways. In the whole spectrum of the whole story, but I can't really agree with like Juno being a good match for Legoshi. It's hard because everyone, like I have actually been through like such a scenario where like, oh, everyone says, and like my friends say, oh, such and such girl is perfect for you. Like on paper, yeah, like she would be a good match, but does she touch my heart? Does she exemplify what it means to be a good person, like within her own family? And how does she resolve problems and things like that? And I don't really see the long run of like her being someone. Who knows? Maybe she could have a character arc where she, you know, she overcomes these things and she realizes, oh, what I'm doing is in the wrong, and whatnot. But there's no denying that they paint her in a picture where she's, you know, attractive, she's seductive when she wants to be, and you know, even comes to the point where, you know, it's very like the middle's touch, and she does not leave room for Jesus with her and Rui. But you know, that it's definitely painting the femme fatale kind of image on her.
Well, yeah, I agree with the whole like femme fatale sphere she brings to the table, but even going beyond just like resolving issues and being not a lot of certainty on whether she'd be compatible or Legoshi, I'm in the position where I don't think they are at all. And even Legoshi brings this up, it's because from a philosophy standpoint, they approach the world very differently.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like Legoshi's position of pride is in the fact that he feels that as a carnivore, I need to make sure that I don't appear like menacing or a danger to other herbivores, and that my primary source of strength shouldn't be my physicality. It needs to be coming from somewhere else. Whereas Juno's approach, pride is in her grace and her beauty and her physical strength. All these other, more like physical material traits, like that is her pride. It's pretty clear considering the way she carries herself, like that glamour shot near the end in her dance outfit. Like it's pretty clear, like, okay, this is definitely a point of like your self-empowerment. And her whole view of the world is we are born with these things that are seen as advantages. Why not use them? So just from that approach, like Legoshi wants to build himself to be a person that occupies a place in society that he is comfortable with, whereas Juno is kind of like, okay, I'm on this track, I'll just pursue it and go all the way to the end and try to become Beastar. In that sense, I don't think they're very cool.
I just want to say I ship Juno and Rui.
I can get behind that.
Yo,
I can get behind that.
Dude,
The chemistry in that scene was kind of insane because
It was.
Oh my
I could get behind it.
because it was very tense, right? Because it's like, okay, you're going for Legoshi, but you're both very like dominant, passionate, pursuant people, and the energy that gave was just like, damn, dude,
Yep.
The power.
This is spicy.
No.
It's a spicy meatball.
And I think in that scene, if you watch it, I think she's actually wagging her tail.
Well, yeah, because she enjoys the power, right? Like, I'm telling you, power comes up so many ways in the show, but like, yeah, like that scene
she's just
felt
happy.
powerful.
Real thought. So yeah, obviously I disagree with that hard, but like I'm not gonna get into that. Like I hate it. I hate it. What are those redeeming qualities you guys mentioned about her?
I didn't say anything about anything being redeeming. I just
what
felt
are
that.
good qualities? Because you guys said like I like her as a character because I think I like her position, but I hate her. I just want to hear if you guys said there's some qualities you like.
There are redeeming qualities with her. Like she has her vulnerabilities because the opening scene of like when she is coming in, like there are parts of her that aren't always the dominating carnivore because little fish out of water, and everyone can relate to that. And in that sense, she has that kind of relatability, which the redeeming qualities are kind of sparse. But as far as the way that they tell the story is they tell someone they share someone's story from an underdog perspective, pun intended, with that. And she's new to the school, she's a freshman, and but yet there's always a bigger fish. But in terms of when she sets her mind to something and she wants something, she's gonna take advantage of every little bit that she has naturally. And in that sense, we know how that plays out.
Ryan, were you gonna say something?
No, I really had nothing to say. That was like, hasn't already been said already.
I would. So just going to your point, Josh. I kind of lost it there. I think, yeah. So I didn't dislike her in the beginning. Like, if anything, I thought it was an interesting perspective. I thought it would be a cool. Hey, here's the perfect match versus. It's cool to have a villain that's like obviously, hey, this is who you should be. I think it's kind of like the Lemillion thing, not necessarily like an amazing character, but maybe he should have been, the one who inherited the power and everything. Like, it's that kind of parallel where it's like, you're not a bad person. It's just that like, you're just kind of like that conflict within the storyline. But I think she really quickly shed that shell. So the character we saw when we were first introduced, and I know she has a small character arc, and her arc will have more later on, and we've only seen a little bit of it. But I think she shed that shell so quickly in the beginning of the show, to immediately be just becoming a pure bully who uses all her physical and unfair advantages to take advantage of like other people. That's just where I'm coming from, but I could see like what you all said.
When do you feel she took advantage of someone?
Using her strength over Rui, or using
Over
her
Haru.
beauty to make fun of Haru in front of like literally everyone, or her facade to like get up there and be friendly with everyone just to shit on someone that has done nothing wrong to her directly.
I didn't get the inclination that she used that to make fun of Haru. Like, it felt more like a ploy to show to the world, hey, we make an apex power couple. Like, I didn't.
Also, you forget that, like, so when the scene with Rui, like, Rui baited her. Like, that's what, she wasn't there to just dominate him, right? He said, as long as you're having fun, all the men will be happy. Right? Like,
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
he baited her. So that's why she did that. And although, unfortunately, I'll admit, like, I didn't take notes on this part, but there were a lot of instances, so I won't be able to give specific examples, but when she suspected that, like, that Legoshi likes or potentially likes somebody else, and she was, like, kind of stalking him or whatever, I feel like when she was seeing certain things, there's a lot more malice she could have done that she didn't do. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like she's trying to use her own, like, skills and her own physicality to get Legoshi rather than her knowledge of, like, him. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there are a lot of instances where she was basically following him around and like somebody else, and she was, like, kind of stalking him or whatever. If she was truly an evil person, right? So I don't think she's purely evil, although I do agree with you that she has done a lot of bad. I will not deny that, which is why I said I was mixed, right? So I feel like there's a lot more she could have done with the information she had if she was purely bad, right? So I think there is room for her to grow, and I wouldn't be surprised if she does, because I think this author is good about that kind of stuff. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I like to go on that train of thought. Juno could have done a lot of things to, like, kind of take the rug from under Haru, but, you know, she could have very easily, you know, dominated the situation where she's just like, oh, blah blah blah, this and that. But again, she's using everything that she has been blessed with to her advantage. And I don't know, it's a crazy dynamic to think of, to kind of wrap your head around. Is like, is it wrong for someone to try and come up in the world by using the gifts that they've been blessed with, like their athleticism or their good looks, to get up in the world? But, like, at the same time, like, where does it draw the line between competitiveness, like genuine competitiveness and trying to, like, better yourself and better your situation, versus someone who's trying to just, like, mess everyone else's life? And in that sense, I don't know, it's kind of hard to draw the line for me in particular, like, whether or not she's the ultimate bad. I don't feel like in I don't know, in David's eyes, like, how he sees her, but, like, it's like having like Asta in, like, Black Clover. Like, he has, like, all the disadvantages, but he has the advantage of having a thing that is, like, an anomaly, you know? And, like, can you really fault them for that? I don't know. I'm trying to look on both sides of the coin in that sense, you know?
Yeah, I that's a hilarious parallel, but I definitely understand what you're saying with that. I can't believe you just compared Juno to Asta, but yeah, that makes, I definitely get where you're coming from, though. And honestly, it was weirdly refreshing because, like, when she was introduced, I thought, and I don't know if everybody else thought this, but I thought she was just going to be, like, this shy, timid girl.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it was
really thought she was going to be just a shy, timid girl.
Yeah, right. And I was refreshing that she was a complex character that has flaws and gets jealous and gets territorial, just like a real animal would.
Yep.
Any
person, for that matter,
female or male would.
I mean, it happens to us too.
It's a natural instinct, and, like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting.
No, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like, yeah, it's hard because for me as someone who, like, one of my best friendship came from a relationship where one of my best friends, James, he was attracted to the same girl that I was at work, and we're like, oh, what a twist! Like, the person that I've been going to hang out with after work is also the person who I'm going to compete with for affection from this girl, and it's like, oh, well, may the best man win. And it's kind of a hard dynamic because,
Mhm.
like, you don't like you want to win, but at the same time, it's like you don't want to be the bad guy in all of this, because if you are the person who's trying to, like, mudsling at the other person and paint them in a bad picture, you do ultimately become the villain. But, like, if you try to better yourself and, like, use everything you can to improve and, like, get yourself in a position where you're, like, a better suitor for, or better, what's the word, what's a more modern word, a better match
Hook up.
For the other person, that you're attracted to, can you really be faulted for that?
Sorry, I cut you off there. Can you keep on going? Finish your point.
No, yeah, that's pretty much it.
So going back to what all you guys are saying, right? So sorry, I was trying to take some notes just to, because you guys had a few points. I just want to retort a few of them. You guys will go off the train saying that, like, there's nothing wrong with taking, using your advantages to try to, win the ultimate battle. And I see what you're coming from there, and I would agree. I think my cutoff for why she's bad, and not that she's a bad character, she's complex. I like that she has jealousy. I like her role in the story, and I'm glad she's there. With me saying that she's not a good person, not saying that she can't have an arc later and re-justify this. Of course she can. Almost any character can. Her attempt to not only win over Legoshi, there's nothing wrong with that, but her desire to humiliate. How do you pronounce that word?
Humiliate.
Haru at the same time is what makes her a bad person. So that's where I would come in, where you guys were saying that she could have done much worse, and I don't think so, because all she was doing was being tactical. She's smart. She's tactical. She was watching from the background, getting everything, and her big moment was to show, to humiliate. I don't know why I can't say that word, but to make fun of Haru. Yeah,
Sorry.
English is the only language I know, and I can't even.
It's just, humiliation isn't in vocabulary because you don't humiliate people.
Yeah,
it's just
I'm just so pure good, and I just think she's so bad. I would never do it.
So hang on a second here. So
sorry to interrupt. Sorry. I'm gonna have to excuse myself for just a minute.
Okay.
Daisy's having a bit of an issue, so I'll be right back.
Okay. No worries. But yeah, I actually like to talk about the humiliation thing. I don't know if I'm remembering the scene incorrectly or what, but I don't think she was humiliated. Because literally Juno gets up on stage and is like, and then at the same time that she gets up on stage, like, to introduce Legoshi, she just says, like, oh yeah, did you hear what he did for this herbivore? Like, he went and, like, saved her life and all this stuff like that. And then there was that scene where he was like leaning down because Haru was trying to find him, and then he got called on stage. Yeah, and then he got called on stage, right, in the spotlight. And then she just leaves, and then they have a conversation about it, right? But I don't think she was ever actually humiliated. It wasn't a good move, but, like, I don't think she was humiliated.
I would say there. So, like, a few points I have for there. So the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that we saw was Haru running away, and in her mentality, she literally said, "I've never been bullied like that bad," or something along those lines. Where someone who's been bullied so much, and she was like, "I've been bullied about guys and everything," but she was saying how that one hurt so much because it was obviously 100% directed towards her. Juno waited to do it in front of such a large group in order to take advantage of the opportunity of what, you know, her beauty, her being on stage, her being the focal point, to say, everyone ship us. Like, look at us. It wasn't like she did it on the side and just trying to win over Legoshi on the side. She waited till she can have a big audience so that she can publicly show people supporting that and have people watching and be cheering for her and Legoshi on a stage, so that to Haru, she's like, oh wow, maybe that's what it should be, right? To like, and like Juno know that would hurt her to see the man that she likes with Juno like on a big stage. And then the last thing is, going back to the point where I was saying that Juno kind of dismisses the herbivores into like a lesser class, when she was saying, hey, he saved like a defenseless little herbivore, right? She was doing the same thing while putting up a carnivore, saying like, yeah,
like a backhanded compliment or backhanded comment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch it because like I don't remember Haru saying that she's never been so humiliated in her life, but maybe I'm just not remembering it.
Yeah, when
correctly.
she ran away, she was saying, she was like, yeah, I've been bullied before, but that one especially hurt. Something along those lines, but I
don't
definitely know
remember.
for sure
Okay.
she did that, yeah.
Okay, that's fair then.
Sorry, I just hate Juno, so that's why I'm...
Nah, it's fine. Okay, anybody else want to say anything about Juno though? I like that discussion though. Some good points were made.
I'm good. I don't really have much else to say about her. I mean,
Okay.
she's you guys kind of covered most of everything, so
Okay. So we've talked about pretty much every major character. Can we talk about how amazing Legoshi's like bro squad is his roommates? They're so wholesome. I love them so much.
I
We're talking
wanted
about
them
the
to
art?
show up
Jack.
so bad, and like
Yeah.
have like this really weird like squad like 100% that's what was gonna happen, because when Legoshi was going by himself and he was like, and you know, the first couple fights happen and it's obviously like he needs help, and then the panda shows up, of course, right? I was like, bro, the squad is gonna show up and do some like, it was gonna be like a Kung Fu Panda moment where like the whole squad shows up, and like even though they're animals you wouldn't like suspect to be like very aggressive or very like effective at that, they'd use their natural advantages against lions or just have like weird quirks
Yeah.
to them that would fight. Like, I know that's just going very like shonen-y, but I totally thought that's what was gonna happen. So
Same. I thought that too. Something like that. Yeah.
Which squad is this though? Because he has the art team and then he has like his actual.
No, not the art team. Not the art team. His roommates.
Okay, his actual roommates. Okay. Yeah, no, they were very good. I think Jack kind of took most of the spotlight though, just by
He did.
being his like cocky.
He's his childhood friend or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like they've known each other the longest, so it makes sense. But yeah, they're all really cool. Very simple. That scene where they're all like cutting their fur was hilarious.
Yeah, dude, that's some fan service right there.
They're all ripped.
and I love the scene where like the not bamboo, baboon, the baboon administrator came and was like asking them like where Legoshi is and why is he with like this other girl, and like should she be worried and stuff like that, and they all like sigh at the same time and is like, there's no need to worry, it's Legoshi. I just like love that so
yeah,
much. It was so good.
that was hilarious. I honestly don't have much to say about the roommates, but the roommates were very. I mean, we didn't get a lot of screen time with them either, except for his best friend. But that they were very much like just. It was kind of like a nice base for comedic value, I would say. So it was really good, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
What did everyone feel about the chicken sequence?
Yeah, that was okay. So I liked it overall because it is world building technically. So I did like it overall, but it was a little weird.
Super and weird.
I like it.
And it's
Super weird.
also weird that technically they're all eating chicken. Period.
Oh, why would you say it like that?
I think it was a cool way to show how a herbivore feels, like in a different aspect, feels empowered.
Yeah.
while
Yeah,
still being-
okay, then.
Yeah.
I found thematically it was very cool just because it showed like there's this concept.
Yep.
You muted yourself.
muted yourself.
There are various domestic interruptions, the insistence
okay.
on me consuming various food, but that's
No worries.
okay, I guess. Guys got to eat, suppose. Love you, parents.
Carnivore.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, I think thematically it was very interesting because this concept of like your pride as a species, it comes up more than a few times, and we get to see that from the perspective of not a carnivore, because all the carnivores are very similar. It's like, I am physically strong, I have hunter's instinct, I can do all these cool things. But then you see like the pride of a chicken laying OP eggs. So I thought that was neat.
Yeah, no. Overall, I think it definitely was a positive add to the show, and it didn't take up too much time to even like show that.
Gotta get going.
It was like the first 5 minutes of like an episode, I think. So it wasn't really that big of a deal for them to like put that in there, and I think it added something to the world. Where are they getting all these eggs from? Yeah, obviously the chickens laying them. Like, it's obvious, but like, you know, it's still important, I think. But yeah, I think we've talked about pretty much every major character. We've talked about a lot of themes that the show's trying to tackle, at least in season 1.
We're also 2 hours and 10 minutes in, so
yeah. So I kind of just wanted to leave it with one more question, which is, what do you want in season 2?
Honestly, I just want more world building. Maybe some, like, what do other areas of this world look like? And, you know, it basically, in a sense, even at least our high schoolers, is their struggle resolved to a certain extent when you become an adult? You know, is there an area where the limitations of this society actually don't matter, and it's every man or animal for themselves? I kind of want to see that, and if possible, not too interested in the love affair, to be honest. Because even though I like coming of age stories, I like coming of age stories that don't necessarily focus too much on drama. Although coming of age is a bit of drama, but I mean like relationship drama. I like a coming of age of just realizing, understanding, and then making a choice. So I like a lot of that. So that's what I want to see. I want to see more characters, either seeing and understanding and making choices, or I want to see more, if anything, the core characters, Legoshi, Haru, Rui, just further like putting their feet, you know, their foot down, or their hooves or paws down when it comes.
They ain't got that. They just got feet.
Yeah,
they got feet and hands, and they're basically humans with animal masks.
Right. So I just want to see them put their kind of like stand their ground when it comes to their beliefs, and when it comes to, you know, just growing into adulthood. So I want to see a lot more.
I would like to see the firefight between like Rui and like, literally he had the opportunity to dual wield, because the lion had a gun and he had a gun. Just like go out with gun blazing. You have at least 11 shots left. Like, come on, man. They took care of like, what is it, like at least, was it 12 lions? So I mean, the numbers are in his face.
I mean, hey, he has the number 4 on his, which represents death. So.
I am the death bringer.
When
Okay.
them having guns, like, I know this is not really a central theme or that important, but just from like a core logic point, guns, like not the purpose of guns, but what guns do to a society is it puts a lot of people on an equal playing field. Not perfectly,
They do.
of course. So it was interesting to me for them to have guns into society, because think about it logically. There's probably more herbivores by a large amount than there is carnivores. And like, I don't think the show will ever go down this route, and I wouldn't want it to. But if there ever was like some global conflict or something like on a bigger scale, I mean, guns just really make it so like it doesn't matter if they're naturally strong, because you can just shoot them. Plus, herbivores are smaller targets, so they're probably harder to shoot anyways. I don't know.
Yeah. But then like, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting perspective to like look at. But yeah, it just because someone can pull a trigger doesn't mean that the shot is gonna land unless they're like point blank. But like,
No,
that's where recreational shooting becomes fun. You know, is like, it's that skill set that everyone can like hone and whatnot. And then also it's knowing your gear, knowing your firearm. Just as like any tool, you're only as good as a gun, a car, tool is only as good as the person operating it.
I agree. You make a good point, but sorry, I know that's just kind of like a random aside. Did you going back to the season 2 thoughts?
Yeah, David, what was your hopes for season 2?
I mean, I really think that I'd really like them to focus on Rui, if I'm being honest, because like
Same.
I know it's gonna be a direct sequel, right? I would have kind of preferred a somewhat spin-off where it shows Rui's story, because I think at the end of the day these are high schoolers like we brought up, and it's cool that they had a bigger impact. But Rui's the only one who's really concerned about the global impact and who can like make that change. You know, it's not like My Hero where like, yeah, they're technically high schoolers, but they're part of like they're gonna be leading into these like heroes. These are just normal people who might get normal jobs in the future. And I think it'd be a little silly to like go down the direction of having Legoshi and all of them like focus on like changing the society, because they're obviously like that'd feel forced. So I'd rather see like a really focus on Louis' side, him maybe having conflict with the mayor and stuff like that, him maybe, I don't know, finding some kind of force, or finding some kind of way to start making a bigger impact, and then having maybe a smaller side story with Legoshi and Haru kind of getting together, with Juno maybe being that main antagonist in the love story aspect.
Right. I would pretty much agree with you. I hope for the season 2 to be focused on Rui and what he's been doing all this time, if he comes back or not. And obviously, I do want to see the relationship, explored more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily need them to get together or anything like that, but I think I want them to understand each other more. I want Haru to realize more about herself, why she's being drawn to this person, because she doesn't truly really understand completely yet why they keep, coming back together, besides Legoshi obviously following her around. But, I hope she understands more about herself in season 2. And I hope that we learn more about the world, like Nate said. I definitely agree with that. And, hopefully we find out who the killer is too, because I don't think the killer point should be, overarching completely until the end of the manga. I think they need, because I think there's other things we can worry about, in my opinion. So I do hope they at least get closer to finding the killer, or just straight up find the killer in the next season.
What I want is some illumination on the role, function, and significance of what a Beastar is, because as of right now, it's extremely vague, and that's the name of the darn show.
Yeah.
So
That's like Bleach, though.
Nice. It doesn't need to be the core element, but I need something, man. As of right now, all we know is a Beastar is a symbol of hope, and then it's like, okay, help.
I basically assumed it's like, how in anime somehow like student council presidents have an OP amount of power for no reason,
right? And
I think it's like that, but on a bigger scale.
And I get that, but it has its own like Square Enix proper noun, so I'd like to know what it
does.
is.
Yeah. I agree.
So, and I don't necessarily need the core concern to be the murder mystery, but I would like that to be like not completely forgotten after episode 1. Like, yeah, there's references to it, and it does like color the fact that this anime is actually kind of dark, guys. But other than that, the mystery was just kind of became an afterthought.
Yeah.
And the show even acknowledged that, because like literally only Lewis was the only one coming back to his like memorial giving flowers. So I'd want more of that. I do want to see if like where the romance goes, what Juno's development is as a character, and how those things play out. One thing in the short term, though, I want to know who this new character is and why we need to care about. Because
which new character?
At the very end of the show, after the
carnivore guy.
Yeah, it's like he looks at a dude and he's like, "Oh, you're back. We were wondering where you were."
Yeah,
it's just like da-dung. Season 2.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean that's the killer, right? We just don't know who it is.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. We just don't know who that character is. That's the killer, though.
Is
that's
that what you're
thinking? But
to?
I'm wondering if that's going to be the killer, or if that's like a red herring, or like.
I'm pretty sure it's the killer. Yeah, I mean, if it's a red herring, that'd be insane. I wouldn't expect it to be a red herring.
Be the killer.
You're not wrong, dude.
What if they break the fourth wall and the person that they're bringing along is the audience?
Wait, like a human?
Yeah.
In the end, the big problem was ourselves.
It was us all along. Ryan, basically, we're just talking about essentially like what are your hopes for season 2? We're just going to end the podcast with this question.
Okay. Season 2. I'd like.
Mhm.
I would agree with Vicky. That was one of my biggest gripes about the first season of the show, is because I thought when I first came into it, I thought, oh hey, like someone's dying, it's gonna be some murder mystery shit, and then it just switches up to something completely and totally different. I mean, it still has like bits and pieces here and there from like where that happened and like the effects of it, but they never really dive too deep into it. So I'd like to see more of that. And definitely I want to see if Juno becomes an even bigger asshole or becomes redeeming. Ruiz has got to come back. He was best boy.
Yes.
He was a dick, but he was best boy, and he was a dick for reasons.
Yes.
I think I've kind of already gotten it kind of spoiled just by people who cosplay from
You better shut that
Beastars.
mouth.
Yeah, don't even go in there, bro.
You
Don't
better
even go in there.
shut that.
So, no, it sucks. It's all in. So I don't know the context of it, but yeah, it sucks. But anyways, I'm glad that as far as something that I wouldn't normally watch itself, I was pleasantly surprised by Beastars being as good as it is. It's kind of like retelling of bits and pieces from my life. And to touch back on what happened with me and my friend James, we became one of our best bros came from that, and we didn't end up going anywhere with that girl Hannah. Oh shoot. I won't say. It's already too late.
David, bleep it out in post.
Too late.
David, bleep it out in post.
Anyways, yeah, she's married now, so what it is what it is, and I have a good bro out of it.
Invite her husband on the next podcast.
I would like to see where things would develop with Juno and Haru, because who knows, they could have like a good friendship in that as well. Kind of like how I have in the whole competition of like, may the best person win the affection of the other, and it's like, yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for trying this out. I know there's some rough edges here. We'll hopefully work them out as we keep doing this. I'm going to be deciding I'm going to be suggesting rather the next anime we watch. So we'll do that behind the scenes here and pick this up in episode 2. Any closing thoughts? Anybody want to say anything before we close this?
No.
Make sure you follow us on our different
I
socials.
fucking knew it.
My
Insert social media plug here.
my YouTube channel is The Abandoned Hero on YouTube and also on Instagram. Check it out. And I also live stream Twitch, where I make a lot of my creative DIY projects and also my cosplay progress.
Like,
All right.
comment, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell, because without that, you won't know when we're posting new content.
Nah, dude, you got to say it right. Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, or else.
David, that's my text tone now. I got it on recording.
Oh my god.
That is my new text tone.
All right. Thanks, everybody. All right, stop recording now.